But if through the Spirit you mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live. It's from Paul, Romans 8:13. Those who live according to the sublime laws of the Spirit breathe in a sphere different from the physical field in which they continue to walk. An advanced comprehension donates their inner condition. They take advantage of the day like dedicated students who see their stay on the earth as an invaluable time of learning that should not be wasted. In work, they discover the blessing gift of spiritual growth and improvement. In the ignorance of others, they discover a precious opportunity to be of service. In the difficulties and afflictions on the path, they gather resources for their own illumination and elevation. They watch obstacles pass by as if they were clouds. They love responsibilities but do not become attached to the possessions. They administer with devotion but stay clear of being controlling. They support without unhealthy tendencies. They serve without becoming enslaved. They remain attentive to the need to sow, but do not worry about the harvest, for they know that the soil and the plant, the sun and the rain, the water and the wind belong to the eternal giver. Beneficiaries of the divine gifts, wherever they may be, they carry their personal treasures with them in their conscience and heart. Blessed are those who go forth in spirit. For them, the afflictions of death will be no more than the dawn of a new day, a sublime transformation and a joyful awakening. So let's close our eyes. And with the thoughts in God, our Creator, in Jesus, our Master of Love, our guiding light, we ask all the good spirits present here today, the incarnate and discarnate ones, to watch over Raphael and all people present here today, that they can learn from this lecture today and they can put them in practice each and every day of their lives, learning from everything and becoming better today than we were yesterday. Give us peace, give us harmony, and give Raphael the mind, the clearing of his mind, so he can be a good instrument of the Spirit's teachings and Jesus. So be it. Thank you, Raphael. It's on you now.
Thank you, Sandra. So good morning to everybody here. Good morning to those who are going to be watching this live and later on. To me, it's always a pleasure to be here to see all you guys. So this format is even better because I feel even more connected as I see your faces there. And this is always a special moment of the week because we talk about this doctrine that shines a light on our lives and gives us strength, hope, happiness. So today, I will attempt to bring the perspective of the Spirit in how they see the universe. Then you can immediately ask or think, how can you give this perspective since you yourself is not free from this world? So how can I talk about this perspective since it's not my perspective? Well, that's why Spiritism is so special, because we can talk, the spirits, they tell us. So I'll be using as a source the main books of the Spiritism doctrine and the books of psychograph by Chico Xavier and Divaldo Franco. So from this agglomeration of books, we can extract their perspective if we put all the pieces together. So this topic is actually a topic for a seminar. It's very extensive, but I'll try to narrow down and just to bring a little bit of what I mean by the perspective of the Spirit. And when I say the Spirit, I don't mean just a spirit like us, that we discarnate but is still connected to this planet. I mean a spirit who has been purified over several incarnations and through hard work. So that's my reference. A good spirit, a spirit who has been purified. Not necessarily a perfect spirit, but that's my reference when I say the perspective of the spirit. And to start, I'll just point out the moment that we are living today with the great changes that they start happening from the second half of the 19th century, coincidentally with the appearance of spiritism. Of course, it's not coincidence, but since the second half of the 19th century up to now, it's an unprecedented moment in our history because things have been changing so much, and each year it accelerates even more. So I'm not an old guy, so I'm in my 40s, but I still remember a point in time where we didn't have smartphones, or we didn't have internet, we didn't have computers at home. So this shows that in one lifetime, we can see very drastic changes in the way we live our lives. And just to connect more with our lecture, I will point out only two recent discoveries that is going to set the stage for where I want to start. So the first one is the Higgs Boson in 2012, and the second one is the picture from the black hole in the Messier galaxy that was taken in 2019. It was processed in 2019. But why am I talking about these two? Well, the first one shows, so the Higgs boson, what does that mean? I don't want to make it complicated. This means that there is a field in the universe, there is something in the universe, and we interact with this something, and that's what makes us have a mass. So we have our bodies here, and we feel the heaviness, the mass of our bodies. But how is it that we feel that? It's because we interact with this field that is called the boson field. So, the Higgs field. And because we interact with this, we have mass. And because we have mass, we feel gravity. So this is very important. It's a very important discovery that shapes how we see the universe today. It's very different from before this discovery. And the second one, the black hole, it shows how the universe is always changing. The universe is a very dynamic place, but we don't see it because we see from the perspective of an incarnate person that lives 80, 90 years, which is nothing in comparison to the universe. So it's a matter of perspective. But how is it that the immortal spirit sees this same universe? So I start by mentioning that we have, instead of taking the whole universe, all the variables, I'm going to take into account only space. Okay, just not time and just space. It's enough for what I intend to do. So we have been trying to identify what is space since the 15th century before Christ. What is it? We walk from point A to point B, but what is it that we are doing? We are doing a lot of transitions in the middle, infinite transition. What is that? And I connect with this statement to a very special chapter from Genesis, from Kardec. It's chapter 6, General Uranography. So then the title, we already stopped at the title. So what is it? What does it mean, uranography? If we read that and we don't connect with any idea these days, because it's an old term. The labels that we use in science, they change as well. So uranography, it means celestial cartography. It's looking at the stars and kind of see as a map. So these days we put everything within astronomy and astrophysics. We don't call uranography anymore. And that's why the title, it's very weird, but if you understand that as astronomy or astrophysics, that's what Kardec is trying to, he's not trying, he addresses. And the first thing that he addresses is space. And right in the beginning, he does something really important. When he mentions the trials that we have been doing to define space, he says that let's not get bogged down. So he says, let us leave all such definitions which do not define anything in the treatises where they lie. So this is something really important. If we had stayed trying to define space, we wouldn't have moved forward and trying to see its properties. So what Kardec is teaching us, and this is what we do in modern physics, don't get bogged down by the metaphysics or the philosophy. If your goal it sits in another place, just move forward. So today I can tell that nobody understands physics. We know how to calculate, but we don't know why it happens the way it happens. And Kardec is telling us here, let's not. He's telling this. We're going, if we connect to the Spirits book, which I'm going to bring in a few minutes, we understand why he's saying this. So don't stop here. Move on, because the important part for us is not trying to define it. So in this chapter, Kardec, he addresses several concepts and several mechanisms of the universe. And he starts with space, time, then matter, laws and forces, universal life, diversity of worlds. And he points out several times that his concepts, sometimes it comes from him, from his knowledge of science at the time. But most of it comes from the spirits. So the philosophy or the idea that he's passing is still valid to these days. But we need to strip the part that we know is, it changed because the science changed. But we need to read as the whole codification. Those are not books that we read. Those are books that we study in order to extract the essence that is going to bring the consolation, which is the main objective of Spiritism, is to make us happier, to console us. So it's an exercise. So if we see, so we continue. So Kardec, he tells us that instead of a definition, he wants to address one property. And this property is the most important, the property of infinity. So he says, I wish only to affirm its infiniteness so that in our subsequent studies, there will be no barrier opposing the investigation of our objective. So it might, so we can read this sentence and just go through it and don't even realize what that really means. And that's why sometimes it seems boring. But if we stop here and we connect and we look at the word infiniteness, Kardec doesn't use that in a light way. He knows exactly what that means. Why do I say that? Because if we see before Genesis, he wrote the Spirits book. And if we go to the Spirits book, we see that the questions that he asked about infinity, and we see there, is the universal space infinite or limited? This is one of the first questions in the Spirits book, the first chapter. And the Spirits, they ask, infinite, if it had limits, what would be beyond them? I know this baffles your reason, yet reason itself tells you that it can be no other way. The same is true of the idea of the infinite in all things. It is not something that you can comprehend in a restricted world. So this already gives us a clue. They use the word infinite or infinity because we can't comprehend what really is. And that's why Kardec it's addressing this property of infinity, because it's very deep. They comprehend, we don't. From their perspective, they can understand a different infinite that we can. I know that this is very abstract, but I'm going to converge to a point. Please stay with me. So then Kardec continues what is meant by infinite? And then the spirits ask, that which has neither beginning nor end, the unknown, all which is unknown is infinite. That is confirming. They use this word because they can't describe something that we wouldn't be able to understand. In the same way that we can't see a color that is not in the rainbow. We can imagine a color that is not in the rainbow. We cannot imagine a geometric figures with 4 dimensions or more, only 3. We can't. It's infinite. It's unknown. And in order to explain why this is, it's consoling, I will try to extract what is the consolation that we have from this infinity perspective from Kardec. And for that, I'm going to borrow an example that was written in the book Cosmos by Carl Sagan. So if we imagine, okay, so let's imagine that we live in a 2D world, okay, only 2 dimensions. So then we walked around, or whatever we can do in 2 dimensions, and we see we have a house, and the door of our house is just, we see that there are 2 lines and a space in the middle, and we go through it. There's no roof because there's no top or bottom. It's just 2 dimensions. Okay, so if we see an object in front of us, we can walk across, we can walk around, and we'll see that, oh, this is a square, this is a circle, this is a triangle. This is our universe. This is our life, 2D. And then a different phenomenon starts happening. A small circle shows up from nowhere. And this circle starts increasing in size, reaches a maximum, and we know it's a circle because we can walk around, and it shows from nowhere. And then it decreases and becomes a dot and disappears. So every now and then we have this phenomena, and we call, instead of calling the dance of the tables or the turning tables, we call the dance of the circles. And it's a phenomena, nobody can explain. And then we go to a spiritist center in 2D, and we have a mediumship group, and then the spirits come and they tell us, this phenomena, these circles, they have no end and no beginning. They are infinite. You can't understand right now. And then, okay, that's their perspective. But from the perspective of the spirit who is saying that, this is a sphere. It's a sphere that when it touches the 2D plane, forms a point, and then when it goes through, the circles increase, decrease, and disappear. So it's a sphere going through the plane of 2D. But if I can see 3D, there's no mystery. It's a sphere. There's no beginning and no end. It's infinite. We have infinite circles in here. It's clear. We don't have any problem in looking at this. It's not a mystery, right? So that's the perspective of the spirit. That's what they're trying to say. It's infinite. We are saying that it's infinite to you now, but one day we'll be able to understand what it means, the universe not having a beginning or an end, or God not have. We know that there's the Big Bang, but if we look at God, that has no beginning and no end. When I was a child, I'll share something why this is so important to me. When I was a child, from when I was 7 years old to my 18, when I was 18, from this period, it was very hard for me to sleep at night because I was thinking about this infinity. And I couldn't understand. It's something that would make me suffer at night. I don't know why. But once I read the Spirit's book and I understood that one day we'll be able to understand, we'll have a different perspective, that is consoling. It means that we don't understand now, but we can be patient that one day we will understand. So this is just an example of what it means, this infinity. And we have more examples that tells us how the perspective of the spirit is from the universe. If we take, for example, the book Heaven and Hell. In this book, Kardec tells us that in the old days, in the Parisian Spiritist Society, when Kardec was the president, They were a group of friends. They participate studies. They had mediumship groups. It's not very different than what we see here, that we have here. So just friends, people that they connect, they become friends. But they have an interesting arrangement. They, among themselves, they would say, when I discarnate, you can call me, evoke me right away, so that I can tell you what I'm seeing. And this, it's printed in a letter from Mr. Sanson. Mr. Sanson was a member of the Parisian Society, and he wrote a letter to Kardec saying, please evoke my spirit as soon as possible and as often as is convenient for you, so that having been a sufficiently useless member of our society during my stay on Earth, I may be of at least some use beyond the grave by providing the means of study. So he's saying that since I feel that I didn't help much, so at least evoke me right away so that I can help by describing what I'm seeing. And they do that. So Mr. Sanson passes away, and 1 hour after his burial, Kardec and his friends evoke him. And he comes and he says, I am a spirit. My homeland is the expanse of space, and my future is God, who radiates throughout the immensity of all. So this tells a lot. Again, we can just read this and keep reading the book. That if we stop and try to understand the implication of Mr. Sanson is saying, his home is the universe itself. So this means he's no longer prisoner of the gravitational field of our Earth. So he can move about. So if you guys remember from the Anthropology's books, we know that even for spirits, discarnate spirits, they are still connected to the gravity. Their perispirits is still very materialized. So they interact with the gravitational field. They feel the pull. So Mr. Sanson is saying that he doesn't feel that. He can travel around the universe. It's his house. It's not the planet. The universe is his house. He has a completely different perspective. The universe is not a dark, cold place. God radiates, so it's full of light. It's his house. So it's a completely different perspective for this spirit. And if we go back to Genesis, and we continue analyzing this relativity, this perspective of the spirit, and if we are paying attention, we see that Kardec brings out this relativity when he says, so he proposes a thought experiment in order to address this still on the infinity of the universe and the perspective of the spirit. He proposes a thought experiment. He says, imagine if we are all traveling at the speed of light through the universe. We just left Earth. So then he continues. Now, it has been a few minutes since we started traveling at light speed through the universe. And already hundreds of millions of leagues separates us from the Earth. Thousands of worlds have passed under our eyes. Yet listen. In reality, we have not advanced one single step in the universe. So if we kind of try to digest again what he's trying to say. So that's why I say that the basic books are not books for reading, they're books for studying. And it takes decades or maybe more than one life for us to really understand everything that is being said there. So taking only those few sentences. So if we strip one thing, so Kardec said a few minutes, okay? 8 minutes traveling at light speed from Earth, we only reach our sun. So it's 8 minutes. So so a few minutes. So Kardec says a few minutes. So in a few minutes, maybe we would have seen Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, the asteroid. The asteroid belt, maybe a few dwarf planets, Ceres or Sirius, but not 1,000. But that's the knowledge that they have at that time. So we understand this point. But the philosophy and what he wants to tell us is that even at light speed, the universe continues being infinite. And why is he using light speed? That's why he's very, I tell that he was very updated. He wrote this in 1868. In 1865 was when James Clerk Maxwell published his Maxwell's equation. So the great unification of electricity, magnetism, optics, light, heat, everything together. So it's the great unification. So that's why we call it electromagnetic field now. And he discovered that an electromagnetic wave travels at the speed of light. So Kardec is using the speed of light because he knew about Maxwell's work. And he's connecting light with thought. This is very special. So he's already connecting light and thought, because he proposed a thought experiment. And these things, this is not science, because we can't do that. There's no connection in physics between thought and light and electromagnetic waves. We don't even know what thought is. The spirits tell us. It's their science, not our science. But why is this important? Why is this important for us? Let's imagine now a different scenario. Okay, cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria are single-cell organisms, algae. They are green, blue algae, and they live in the sea. So these algae, they can travel 25 micrometers per second. So this is 0.000025 meters. So they travel 25 millionth of meters per second. So if we take St. John's here in Canada, from St. John's to Ireland, these cells, these organisms, would take 4,000 years to travel from St. John's to Ireland. For them, it's infinite. Ireland is in the infinite, because they live much less than 4,000 years. It's infinite. They will take whatever the generations to get there, if they keep multiplying the way. Of course, I'm not taking into account the tides, so that's another analogy. But it's just the cell for that algae to go from St. John to Ireland. It's infinite. It's an infinity. It's a perspective. That's what Kardec is telling us here. That if we travel at the speed of light, the universe is still infinite. So it's relative. It's all relative. And to explain why this is important, I will bring another example. So we know from the mechanics of mediumship that André Luiz connects thought and electromagnetism and matter. But he says that the physics is not the same, it's a new law. So the spirits, they exist using new laws that we still don't know yet. Even though sometimes people come and say, I would like to explain spiritism using electromagnetism. We can't. We can't, because we were not there yet. What we can do is to use the analogies that André Luiz tells us to use. It's more or less like this, and then we can make analogies. But it's not the same thing. If it were the same thing, the mechanisms of the communication with the spiritual world would be completely different. Let me bring you another example from the book Planetary Transition. Okay, book Planetary Transition, 2004, when the beginning of our transition to regeneration accelerated. So then Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, he started to bring us books with updates of the transition. And the first one, Planetary Transition, psychograph by Divaldo Franco. And then Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, he narrates a situation that happens in a colony close to Earth, still orbiting Earth, where they invite a spirit from the Taurus constellation. So the constellation of Taurus. So they invite a spirit who has gone through a transition, because the world that they live is much more advanced than ours. So they call a guy that knows what the transition is from beginning to end to come and give a lecture. And then, but this spirit that he has to materialize in the colony, in the spirit world. So they need mediums to donate the fluid for the spirit to materialize in a chamber inside of a glass. So this already tells us the mediumship, if we define mediumship or medium as a bridge between discarnate and incarnate, is incomplete. Medium, it is a bridge between stages of spirit materialization. It doesn't matter. It could be from discarnate to an even more discarnate spirit. So that's the more general definition. But okay, so going back, so this guy comes and he gives a wonderful lecture. It is it's in the book. I'm not going to say what he said. This is a topic for another lecture. But the important thing is, if we take one star from the Taurus constellation, the star Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the brightest star, and is 65 light years from Earth. So if we use the connection given by André Luiz in the Mechanics of Mediumship, and use the same analogy that Kardec was using, let's say that we want to invite this spirit to give a lecture at TSS Sunday morning. Let's imagine that, a spirit from Aldebaran that will come, and we want the spirit to be here today, to give a lecture. That would be wonderful. But light takes 65 years to travel there. So if we imagine that the invitation would have been sent by thought, and the thought would travel at the maximum speed that we know it's allowed by the universe, that we know it's light. So then our invitation would take 65 years to reach the spirit. The spirit would read our invitation or feel our invitation, and then take 65 years to come here and give a lecture. So this means if we want the spirit here today, we should have sent the invitation by the time Leon Denis was writing his books, 130 years ago. And this is just the next constellation, very close by. So this tells us that the perspective of the spirit of the universe that they have of the universe is completely different. It's not the same infinite that we have, because they don't travel at light speed. They travel much faster than that. The speed of thought, which we have no idea what is. So they travel at, again, we use the word infinite because we don't know. So they travel at infinite speeds. So they can go through constellations in times that we can't fathom. So this shows that the universe is not an empty space for them. They can travel wherever they want. It's completely different perspective. And that's what Mr. Sanson was telling us in the Heaven and Hell book. And that's not all. That's not all. This already is, so in the 80s, when we used to think about superpowers, I used to think about Christopher Reeve, the Superman, right? So he's the maximum, so he could travel and fly. Today's Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is awesome. It's the best one. So imagine these spirits, they are free of they don't interact with gravitational fields, so that they not only they are free from the gravitation, they can move around. They can move around at speeds that are unconceivable to us. So the universe, it's just their home, place where they live. And then we think, okay, we have these spirits and they are moving around at very, very high speeds. But if we think that they need energy, where do they take their energy? We know that we need energy. We have to keep we have to keep homeostasis of our body, all the organs working, the temperature, everything. So we have to eat a lot. So we can't think, oh, I'm gonna walk from here to Montreal without eating. We have to stop all the time and sleep and eat. So what is it with these spirits? They still have matter. But then there's a key that makes everything fantastic. In another book, Evolution in Two Worlds, André Luiz tells us that these spirits, they absorb the energy from the fluids that are around them. And not only that, they feed from love. They feed from love, the love that they feel for each other. So if we imagine when we invite people to come over for dinner parties, and we sit down and we talk, you don't have to do anything special. We just talk and we interact. That feeds us. That love feeds us. It feels my problems are a little smaller now because I shared, I talked, I listened. So we feel better. That's why it's so hard, the pandemic and lockdown, because we need this interaction. At this point, it's not enough for us. We need food as well because we have a heavy body. But one day, this love will be enough. And we'll be always connected. So it's not just at dinner parties. These peers, they are always connected. So they are always feeling that happiness for being together. They are communicating via thought. So this is fantastic because their perspective of the universe is a place of freedom, is a place full of things happening, full of light and full of love. And that is our future. That is our future. But then you can ask me, okay, so then the universe is full of spirits going back and forth. Why don't I see that? So we have now, we just put another telescope in orbit. Forgot the name. It's supposed to substitute the Hubble. So to dive deep into space and see different radiation patterns and see further black holes and dark matter. Why can't we see these spirits? It's by design. We are not ready yet. In another book, I'm bringing a lot of examples. That's why I'm saying that this is the pieces of the puzzle are always spread around. We have to put together. In another book, Sex and Destiny. And again, André Luiz. André Luiz is talking to a mentor, Claudio. And André Luiz makes this question to Claudio: why can't we see anything? And Claudio says, God's universe mustn't shine on creatures on earth, except as stars, like drops of light in the darkness, in order not to overwhelm their smallness. So the reason that we can't see is because we'll see how small we are and we're going to feel bad. So that's why the spirit world does not allow us to see colonies, to see how busy the universe is. Then it looks cold, it looks empty. It makes us sad to see that darkness. But from the point of view of the spirit, it's a place of freedom, a place of happiness, a place of love. And these spirits, since they are always in connection with God, they are always in this state of, we will call ecstasies, but for them it's just happiness, perfect happiness. I don't even think we can withstand that amount of happiness. When we get close, we start crying. That's why when we see something beautiful, we cry, because it's so much that overflows. So these spirits, that's their perspective of universe. It's a happy place, it's their home. And that's why this is, to me, it's fantastic, because everything that we are going through, all the sufferings, the difficulties, is to purify us so that one day we are going to participate, we are going to join them in this happy place. We are going to be free of this little rock that we call a planet, which is just an incubator. We are in an incubator of spirits, a school. We are meant to disconnect from this and take our place among them in the universe. That's our future. That's what I had for today, guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rafael. What an amazing, inspiring, and mind-blowing lecture this morning, at least for me. It's amazing that we can realize how much we still don't know, but at the same time, it brings us that that happiness that there is so much for us to learn, not only about ourselves, but about everything in life, right? How we are together. So for now on, I'm going to open a round table for us to exchange our ideas, answer questions if there is any. I think Joe is monitoring the questions on the TSS, both on Twitter and on Facebook, right, Joe? Any questions? Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna open if any of us, Marco, we have Ana, we have Marcio and Joe. If we'd like to ask questions or make comments, that will be appreciated. Who wants to start?
Yep, I can start.
Thank you, Marco.
So, that's a very interesting, obviously, topic, and I absolutely love that to talk about that stuff. So, one of the things that I find interesting, like on top of what you said, and I think maybe you can comment on that. The distances are different, perspectives are different, like everything is different, right? From a spiritual world, as I said. Another thing that I find interesting is that we're kind of heading that way when we're looking at how science is looking at the possibility of the M theory of the different membranes like interacting, like you have the multiple, even like Marvel, as you said, as an example, right? Likes to talk about that, the multiverse kind of thing. But this idea of the string theory, the M theory, where now you have this coinciding universes, right? Or potentially interacting planes of existence at the same time. So do you think that is kind of part where the spirits were talking about when they're talking about different perspectives?
I think it might be. It's well, before this lecture, we're thinking all this. So thinking how we can use string theory to kind of imagine wormholes and connection between the dimensions. And maybe the spirits are using that. They use these wormholes. But this, until André Luiz or any other spirit comes and says, oh yeah, that's what they're using. That is something that is like our imagination. We can say, I love to think about that. Maybe that's exactly what they're doing. Actually, it's I don't see any other way, because even if they have a small mass and they want to travel at the speed of light, the force it goes to infinite. We can't fathom. We cannot understand. They must have been doing something that we have no idea. Maybe it is, but it's a wormhole, or maybe they are going through different universes and taking shortcuts. Tick, 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 tick. But we don't know. It's maybe one day we'll know. I hope that one day we'll understand. And I believe that we'll only advance in physics when we are really ready to see life of to understand that the spirits are all around. Because I imagine that this happening one day. Let's say we can access different radiation spectrum, and then we can see colonies. So imagine that. So now we have lenses, and they turn on, and then they see our solar, and then they see other colonies. This would be mind-blowing. So the world's going to go crazy. There are aliens around the planet. We had no idea. So we need to reach that mentality, that maturity first, or we are going to go crazy. It's too much light. We're going to be blind.
It's so true, Rafael. And I don't think we can grasp that yet. I think we're still in our infancy of that rational or that intelligence that we are not there yet. And I think that what you said, that it's going to show that we are still so small. So I think we have to wait until we grow up a little bit spiritually and morally to be able to grasp that and not be blinded by the lights and be inspired by them. So yeah, I totally agree. Marcio?
Yeah, if you allow me, I think the spiritual part, the moral part of our evolution is it's key here, right? Because intellectually we may evolve, we may have more knowledge intellectually and as a science, etc. But what are we going to do with that knowledge? What are we going to do when we encounter aliens, right, or people in spirits and in other planets? What are we going to do with that? I think that is key for us to think about. And I believe that we only gonna see them, we're gonna be able to reach them when we are ready morally, more than intellectually. I think intellectually will come, and we all know that it seems that we are more evolved intellectually than morally, right? So I think it's the moral piece. It's super important for us to think about, and what is the consequences of in our moral existence having contact with aliens. That's my 2 cents on that.
Thanks, Marcio. And I think it is so true. We're still like so small that we don't even comprehend our own differences on this planet, right? Racial, gender, all of them. So how can we comprehend something that is so much more bigger than we can even imagine? So we only have less than 10 minutes. This is going to be ending 5 to noon. We still haven't heard from Joe or from Anna, or is there any questions from our viewers?
I think one of the main reasons is for us to feel consolation in the fact that one day we'll understand. So one day we'll be able to get there. So they teach enough so that we can understand that there's more to see, more to learn. And the little that we can understand, we can bring it to our lives and grow and have a different perspective. As we see in the gospel, we see it from the top. Instead of being close to the ground here with our sufferings and say, why? Then we see from the top. There's something else. You are supposed to be to reach this point. You don't understand yet, but one day you're going to be there. In order to be there, you need to go through what you're going through here. So they tell us the minimum that they can, and every time we have a scientific discovery, they increase a little bit. We see from Kardec to André Luiz in the beginning of the 20th century, and then we see with Manuel Filomeno agora, and things, they keep giving a little bit more. They open a little bit more of the window. And in my opinion, that makes us feel a little bit better and better and gives more hope. That's the way I see it.
I think that's the question there. It's giving us hope, hope and consolation to just, we're here for a purpose. This is a learning a school, and we are young and we need to learn. And through these teachings and these little bit of information that comes to us, we are also very curious. So we want to understand. So we want to study. We want to understand. It gives us hope that there will be something better. This isn't permanent. It's a transition. And so we will eventually graduate to a better place. I take from it.
Yes.
Higher.
Sure. I like to think about, I'm teaching my 10-month-old how to go up the stairs and down. So, I'm thinking about this as the third time now, right? So, so every time we learn a little bit. But so I think the spirits are doing pretty much what we do when we're teaching, like a kid. Like I feel exactly like when I look at my 10-month-old trying to go up the stairs, it's like me, right? Spiritually, right? So I look at her as like this is me, my evolution, spiritual evolution. This is where I am, because and the spirits are coming, like me, and telling just be careful, right? This is a stair. Like you don't know what it is, like, but it's called a stair. Like that's how we are, right? And it's like you can go up, but the more you go up, like the harder it is, and you may fall badly. You can hurt yourself a big time. They have no clue what we're saying, right? But they kind of get the feeling that there's something about it, right? And this is us, right? The spirits are trying to tell us something. They can't really tell us like how to build a stair or like what exactly is a stair, but they kind of give us a hint that may not be a good idea, right? And then you kind of push them and they yell a little bit. They really want to go it, and then you say no, and they make a fuss. Like that's us, same idea, right? So we want to do something, like we can't, and then we make a fuss about it. Like so those steps are really important. So the spirits, in a way, are like us, like teaching little kids, basically, right? So they're giving us enough information that we can kind of survive going up the stairs and not fall on their heads down from the second floor, and so that would be bad. But at the same time, teaching us how to build those steps up, right? So in that sense, the more steps you go, the more information you get, and the more you can learn from it, right? It's a very fine line, as you all know, right?
Thank you, Marco. Thank you so much all for being here. And I'm going to ask, thank you, Rafael, for this lovely lecture, very inspiring. It brings us to this place that Anna said that give us hope, and Marco said give us the knowledge that we're going to be there one day. But also remember that we all have that little seed inside us, that God gave us. And those people that comes to earth and inspire us to be more what God has, and also they bring us not only that, they bring us these teachings that one day we're going to be able to understand more fully. So with that, I'm going to ask Márcio, could you please do the closing prayer for us, Márcio?
Sure thing. So I invite us all to close our eyes. And in this moment, thank God for the opportunity to be together today. Thank our good spirits that guide the studies, the lectures, and the activities at TSS. Thank to our individual mentors and spirit guides that guide us to be here. We thank you, God, for all the teachings of today. And we ask your help to keep the lessons in our hearts and our minds, so we can fulfill our goals, our missions in this earth, in this incarnation. That the blessings that we feel coming towards us from God, from our good spirits, can be expanded to all planet Earth, all the incarnate, discarnate spirits in this planet. Thank you, God, and so be it.
So be it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rafael. Thank you, everybody who could come this morning to join us. And thank you to our viewers that connected with TSS. And hopefully we'll be seeing all of you next week.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.